In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and, dare I say, then we talk about them. Today, we have a dealer's choice. We have two hosts joining me for a total of three hosts, a trio of hosts. We've got Dustin Melbardis from the great state of Texas. Dustin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm great. I am ready. This was my dealer's choice, so I'm excited to talk about this one. Hello.
And you will not believe this, but Chad and I are sitting right next to each other in the great city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, fully vaccinated. And so all that live chemistry that you've missed on the show is back. So
yes, no more social distancing. I am actually hugging Russell right now.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Kind of sounds like he said no more social distancing, like you were decreeing it for all people.
No. Anti-vaxxers, I'm sorry. You can still listen to our podcast, but social distance.
Yeah,
don't muzzle me!
I have no actual power. Podcast power isn't a thing. But it's my first time with Dustin, so I'm very excited about that too.
That's right. And let's just get a little feel here. Let's see. So today's movie is about a teacher. What movie did you watch for class and really enjoyed? Dustin, why don't you go first?
I was thinking about, I was going back to middle school or high school, and I was thinking of the movies I could have picked. I could have picked Gone with the Wind. I could have picked Romeo and Juliet. But I've got an interesting answer here. The answer is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Yes.
But
We watched that in school?
I didn't have to watch this for school.
Oh.
In one of my previous lives, in a former career, I could still do this if I wanted to. I would tutor college kids, specifically with note taking. Certain courses I had, proficiency in statistics and the like. But I once tutored this kid in a young adult literature course, and his final project was to take something that wasn't a book and describe the young adult themes of it. And I said, listen, you need to watch Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and then we'll discuss it and we'll work together on this project. The huge bonus about this was I got paid to watch the movie again because it was using up my hours. So that's my best experience with classroom movies.
You've made me very happy, and you've made Russell very sad.
I don't hate it as much as you say it. I just don't. My level of enthusiasm is not where Chad says it should be placed.
Yes.
It should be high.
Yes, it should.
And it's pretty good.
Higher.
But we did an episode on that one, so that's a great choice. And Chad, what about you? What movie did you see for class and really enjoyed?
It's a Spanish flick. It's Cinema Paradiso. It's very, very charming. Old man and a little kid. They basically get together and watch movies in this old cinema, and it's just a great time. I'd never heard of it before, but apparently it's reasonably well known, and definitely recommend checking it out.
Not Meituan?
No.
Okay.
No, that was a fun time tormenting the teacher during Meituan, but
it's actually a good movie. I went back and saw it later.
But
anyway, yeah, we watched Meituan, and I was one of those terrible kids in class who was unfocused talking, and just the class was a riot. Yeah. But one class that I did watch the movie that we were assigned very closely, and I fell in love with, actually. I really enjoyed this movie. Well, it was an art class, and I watched The Agony and the Ecstasy. It's a 1965 movie starring Charlton Heston and Rex Harrison, and it's about Michelangelo being forced to paint the Sistine Chapel, and it is a great movie, and I would love to do that on the show at some point.
You'd love to paint a ceiling?
Yeah. Well, no, not paint the ceiling, but I mean...
Oh, not that.
No, more the movie part of it, sorry. Yeah. But yeah.
Get more Charlton Heston, period.
Yeah. I was thinking about, just his Planet of the Apes quote, and it's like, Get out of here, you dirty clouds on the ceiling.
I like character. I like that a lot.
So, what is the last movie you saw, Dustin?
I rewatched American Psycho again. Anytime I get reminded of that movie, instead of just like looking up clips, I just start it from the beginning and let it go. I don't know what that says about me, but I rewatched it again last week.
You have good taste.
And Chad, what about you? What's the last movie you saw? Is it better than that?
I'm going to keep disappointing you. I'm going to keep going horror too. 2021's Things Heard and Seen. It's Amanda Seyfried's new movie. Very, very good. I enjoyed it. Do
you feel like it was better than her work on Jennifer's Body?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you could?
That's a stretch to say, but yes, it was
okay.
better. It's real estate horror. It's very much in the vein of Amityville horror, and it's on Netflix.
Okay. All right. Well, I would give that a chance then. And the last movie I saw was from 2010's Real Steel, starring Hugh Jackman and Evangeline Lilly. And you know what? That's a future I want to be a part of with robot boxing.
Boxing robots.
Yes. I am all about boxing robots. I like BattleBots, the show, when it was on.
It's still on. They brought it back.
Yeah. And I also liked Custom Robo, the video game where you're like making various warrior bots themselves out of these parts. So, this all worked for me.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Classic. Yeah, I like those too. Do you have a favorite battle bot?
I like Huge.
I honestly like the ones that lose really badly. My
then
favorite.
You would have liked my favorite.
Yeah,
my favorite was Mauler. Mauler 5150 would get spinning too fast and turn over on its top and just lose.
Yeah.
I remember there was a ladybug that like a 4-year-old girl made, and it was adorable. And then they got into the ring and it did very poorly.
Megatento. Yeah, Lisa Winter. She's now a judge.
I did not. Okay, I did not. You know this at another level than I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Toro and all the flippers.
Yep.
T-, another good flipper, Nightmare.
You guys are ready for this future.
Yeah.
But Buddy Lee Don't Play in the Street was my favorite name of a robot.
Yes,
I don't know if it ever won.
So I had low expectations, but I came out of it having a fun time. So yeah. All right. So today's movie though is Dustin.
Stand and Deliver.
All right. I prefer the Adamant song, Stand and Deliver, but we get a different Stand and Deliver song on the soundtrack. We'll get to that later. But this
80s gold.
Stand and Deliver is a movie that comes out in 1988. It grosses $13.9 million. It places at 69 on the box office that year. That's pretty funny.
Somewhere
Nice.
Rob Gronkowski is going nice.
Yeah. The movie that places ahead of it was Poltergeist 3. I believe that's the one in the Chicago Hancock Tower.
Yeah.
The architecture was good.
Yeah, that's what you want in a horror movie.
Yeah. And it places ahead of number 70, My Stepmother is an Alien. That's a fun movie.
I have not seen it.
Oh, you should enjoy that, actually.
Well, shortlist it and we'll do it.
Yeah. And the number one movie that year, only slightly better than Poltergeist 3, was Rain Man. So, that was sarcasm. IMDb gives a rating of 7.3 to Stand and Deliver. The critics of Rotten Tomatoes give Stand and Deliver an 82%, and the audience score likes it as well at 79%. It is Oscar nominated. The great Edward James Olmos gets a nomination for it. He doesn't win, but there are also 2 Golden Globe nominations as well. Best Actor in a motion picture drama goes to Edward James Olmos again. Best Supporting Actor for Lou Diamond Phillips, which these are great names, by the way.
Yes.
Like, just both of those are great names of people.
I started shortening Lou Diamond Phillips to Louis Dimes, and I like it a lot. I don't
like that.
expect it to catch on. Okay, you like it too.
Yeah.
Edward James Olmos and Louis Dimes.
Yes, and the Independent Spirit Awards, however, do make it a winner. They get 6 of those, and it gets Best Feature, Best Director, Best Male Lead for Edward James Olmos, Best Supporting Actor for Lou Diamond Phillips, Louis Dose, and the Best Supporting Female, Rosanna DeSoto, and Best Screenplay. And the Independent Spirit Awards nominee for Best Cinematography, which it didn't win, so it did get some hardware. Dustin, had you seen this movie before?
This was my dealer's choice. I decided we need to watch Stand and Deliver because I had never seen it before. I chose this movie because I gave so much, we'll call it hate, some people might call it hate, to Edward James Olmos' character in Blade Runner. And so I needed to make it up by choosing an Edward James Olmos led movie, so I chose this movie. Was interested about it, but I had never seen it before. Brand new to me.
Wow.
Wow. So we're going in, I think, all three across the board because I also...
Which is great.
Yeah.
How
I
often
hadn't
does
seen
that
this one
happen on
either.
this podcast? Because I didn't know what to expect, it's very rare that I ever get that. I like to look at it as an opportunity to walk into something like, what's going to happen here? I didn't look up anything about Escalante. I didn't look up anything about production. I just went into it thoroughly pleased after a full watch, happy to rewatch it again. But my expectations were just sort of, let's see how they portray this community and these relationships.
Yeah. Well, you're a brave dealer's choice picker. Then you're the opposite of Brian. So, Brian always picks like his favorite. Like, gotta do that. So.
There's nothing wrong with that. This is my first ever. We'll go ahead and try for it.
Yeah. Now, Chad, you hadn't seen this one either, right?
No, I hadn't. So what I was expecting was Dangerous Minds, but with Latino influence instead of the Dangerous Minds background. That's from the description. That's what I got. This is better than Dangerous Minds by a good amount. I enjoyed it. It's very hard to get movies that 3 people have not seen, so this was a good pick. I appreciated it.
Yeah. And so cool. I honestly, you hit me in an era in the late 80s that's not my era, with a drama, which is probably not my go-to genre, about a teacher, and Chad will let you know I had a tough run-in with a lot of teachers.
And they had a tough run-in with you.
And it had 80s music, so I was a little bit afraid, honestly, going in there. But I actually was really pleasantly surprised, and it was a good time, and it was one of those upbeat, motivating movies that I don't think we've covered anything quite like that on the podcast yet, and so I thought this was a really good thing to do that we hadn't done before. So I'm really glad you did the pick, and then I was just glad to learn about the story because it's a based on true events kind of story.
Yes, and actually based on true events, not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or anything.
Yeah, so
it's a weird comparison to make. Sorry for that.
Yeah, which is not a feel-good movie at all.
I felt good.
Well, when you say that it's got an upbeat feel to it, you could pivot this in a very small amount of degrees, and it could be darker or it could be rougher. They chose just a certain amount of toughness to like a small percentage of how we should portray the area, but it could have been darker. But I think keeping it in the style of a success, of something that works out, and it is kind of an upbeat feel, that makes it a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and you're right. One thing that comes to my mind is when you say dark and serious, I'm thinking of 187 starring Sam Jackson. So this feels far more real than that kind of movie, and honestly, it's more rewarding than what you're talking about, like when they go that dark. So I liked a lot of things about this movie, and I enjoyed watching it both times. So before we continue, though, there will be spoilers that lie ahead, so we will be back after this messages, and we will spoil Stand and Deliver.
Welcome to the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. I'm Ricky.
I'm Grayson.
And every week we review a movie from the past and reflect on things we missed, things we loved, and things we want to see again.
Yeah, because we believe any movie worth watching is worth watching again.
So if you like films, friendship, and a lot of callbacks,
I mean, just so many callbacks,
then subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever RSS feeds go for like-minded movie-loving individuals. Like you.
What happens when 2 modern film fans go back and rewatch all the old classic films from yesteryear to see if they hold up? You get the Classic Film Jerks podcast. Find the Classic Film Jerks podcast on all the major platforms.
All right, this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Chad, for those who haven't seen the movie Stand and Deliver since 1988, do you want to refresh people's memory?
Absolutely. So in the early 1980s, Jamie Escalante, played by Edward James Olmos, is hired to teach computer science at East LA's James Garfield High School. Unfortunately, for at least the second year in a row, there are no computers, so he's asked to teach math. The school is mainly attended by Latino students from blue-collar families, and unfortunately not much is expected of them by their school. Jamie creates the philosophy of ganas, which means desire, in an attempt to motivate his students. He gets the crazy idea to teach students who are already below their grade level AP calculus. This requires an intensive summer school course to catch up, and the students struggle to balance their work and family obligations with the sudden school expectations. Jamie himself suffers a heart attack due to the stress. Through a lot of hard work, all 18 students pass their AP Calc exams, which is something I actually failed to do in high school, but they are accused of cheating by the Educational Testing Service. The students are profiled due to their racial and economic demographics, but they agreed to retake the test. Several months later, the students once again succeed in passing the exam, and they earn their college credits.
Suck on that, racist review boards. Now, Dustin, this is a movie that's a motivating story because it has the impact of the difference that one great teacher can make on their kids, but it's also got the social issues. Again, as I mentioned, there's a racism component to this, how the kids are scrutinized. It's actually a two-half movie. It's got the can they get this to this test, and then they have to prove themselves is like the second act. And is there one part of this that like impacted you more watching it, or did you like that structure?
I think with the structure, I would agree. It is set up into two halves or two acts. First of all, I think they did a great job creating the world for people that maybe don't have an idea of early 80s East LA. You get a little bit of that from Jaime Escalante's drive through the neighborhood in the beginning opening sequence credits. You see the East River, you see the graffiti, the murals on the walls, you see signs in Spanish, you see guys selling oranges on the side of the interstate. Throughout the movie, particularly in the first half, though, you do see some of these high school kids' home lives, where Pancho is trying to fix his car, and his uncle takes a chicken and kind of pokes him with it. You've got Lupe, who is taking care of a whole gaggle of kids while dad runs to work and mom's coming home from work. I think setting up the culture of where these kids come from was accomplished. The second act, I think we were hit over the head with the racism. And I don't know if that would be done the same way today. I think it would have been done differently, if not more subtly, but I would say that aspect of this movie was perhaps a little clunky, but maybe that's just because it was so important this was Olmos Productions. It may have been so important to make sure that the audience knew, whether it's at a dumbed down level or not, that this isn't a movie about people that are dealing with disadvantages. This is a representation of all these people that are dealing with all these disadvantages, and you need to know about it. This is not a one-off shot story. This is how our people have lived for a very long time. So both acts do it differently, but I wouldn't say it was my favorite depiction of how it could be presented, but both missions were completed, if not accomplished, to their full extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I took a different view of that. I actually thought they were a little bit too iffy on the racism part, and I felt like modern day, if they were making it, it would be front and center. I think the reason they did this, and it's never been proven or anything, but the real life story, they actually still believe that a good degree of them actually did cheat, and that the retest, they didn't need to. They just happened to. They said it's still most likely that some of these kids may have cheated. So I don't know if that was the reason of their conclusions, that they kind of just were afraid of libel or something. I don't know. But yeah, I thought they would make it much more front and center. They just kind of danced around it. You're right, clunky's a good word for it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think that this issue actually makes the movie probably more prevalent today, because a lot of these discussions are being had today. And I think you're right. If this movie were made today, I think that the second act would be more central throughout the full run of the movie. I think they would have introduced, you see that they live in their own world as a viewer, but they don't really, like you said, hit you over the head with it. It's just, this is a very different world to that these people live in, these Hispanic communities in East LA and this time. And it's one of those things, so it's a view into that world, but it doesn't really make commentary of saying like this is bad, wrong, or whatever until that second act when you see how they're treated. I'm quite certain if you made this movie today, that treatment and that difference and that would be more, because actually, surprisingly, schools and communities are actually more segregated now, which is hard to believe, actually.
Yeah, I'm wondering how to phrase this. So I living in Texas, particularly near San Antonio, a gigantic city, one of the top 25 largest cities in the country, and also having a huge Hispanic population. I've been surrounded by in the last 11 years or so. I will say one of the reasons I was considering describing this differently, or how it would be made differently today, is I think there's probably more of an awareness of the inequality among Latino families, regardless of where you are in the country and the world, than there would have been in the late 80s when this movie was made. And that's how I was trying to figure out how to say that. Would you guys agree that there's probably more awareness of inequality now than there would have been in the late 80s, if not just for the internet and heavy cell phone usage and of what we can learn or what's available to people? I almost feel as if this movie, the way it was made, was almost as if you may not know, you, audience member, may not know that it's like this for these people. Or in this instance, you may not know that it's like this for us. But now this movie's going to show you what it's like for us. I think that's the difference I was trying to pull out from my previous statement. Would you guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm. I do think there's a slight increased awareness, but I don't think there's enough. You know, we've seen that with the African American communities, Latino communities. There's just not enough awareness of the struggles of
Asian more recently too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just how different cultures that are grouped together are working. You know, it's very easy, especially. We grew up in West Virginia. You know, our school was not very diverse.
Very white school.
Yes.
Not by choice, just because of everybody who lived around us. Right. Largely white.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably 90%.
Probably more.
Yeah, if not more. So, you know, that was our experience. So
I honestly thought we were past a lot of these things, but I grew up in a bubble with my head in the sand, and I didn't witness racism growing up from my parents and stuff. So it was one of those things where naively you just kind of think that you're, as a culture, we're doing better on this. Yeah. And then movies like this, honestly, to your point, Dustin, help insert somebody who just has no contact with anybody from that world or who has experienced that world, much less anybody who has seen that world. So it's a little bit of a wake-up call.
There are high schools that can't get computers and are having music teachers teach math because they can't find anyone. Like, yeah, that stuff blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's two times in this movie where I was talking about, where I was referencing the bluntness of it. One of them is the field trip to, we'll call it the computer factory. I do not know what business it was, but they're walking around carrying like big stacks of like dot matrix printed paper. And Pancho comes over and like looks at the screen and says, "What kind of math is that?" And the neighbor, Jaime's neighbor and former coworker says, "Oh, what you're seeing there is calculus." Jaime says, "You'll get that in college." And the white man says, "Oh, really? My daughter is using this program at her school." Very much like, to me, that's hitting you over the head with a hammer. Like, you should notice, like, this is the difference we're trying to say to you. The white kids get this, you don't. That's what that seemed like. And the second one I was going to say was when Jaime drives to the ETS, what would you call their hall of study? That big library? It looked like it's like some presidential library where they're working. Where he says, you know this is because of my students' last names. And they say the awkward thing about, there's two types of racism. Like that was kind of a little bit, that's where I was describing the clunkiness of it, that I think our filmmakers today, and especially with our greater awareness, or at least definitely greater than it was in the late 80s, it would probably be done either smoother. I don't want to just say flat out better, but I think it could be better than some of the clunkiness we got out of this movie.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point. Looking at this movie in terms of fact versus fiction, Chad, did you find anything in looking into Jaime Escalante's actual experiences in comparison to this way this movie's presented?
Yeah, I looked it up after watching this movie, and he was a fan of the movie, said it was 90% true, 10% drama. There were little things that they changed. Obviously, the students, he had a gallbladder infection instead of a heart attack, things like that. The class size was much smaller as well. I think they started with 5, and it took a couple of years. For the sake of, an hour and a half movie, 2-hour movie, you can't really do that. But his program did grow, and he didn't have any kids that started his class that didn't know basic arithmetic. They weren't admitted to AP Calc courses right away, so he had to work with them there. But otherwise, it seemed remarkably true. Obviously they changed the students except for Ana Delgado. She was modeled on an actual student. But yeah, now there was some stat from Jaime's class. It was 28% of all Mexican-American AP tests that were passed were coming out of his school. So what he was able to do was remarkable.
It is. Dustin, any thoughts that you have on Jaime Escalante, the real man?
The only thoughts were that, from what I read about the time it took to get to that level, I would say in real life, the ending of his tenure at Garfield High School, which, by the way, is I was born in LA. My sister was born in LA. I was born in Monterey Park, but my sister was born in Garfield. So, like, in another life, had we not been adopted and whisked away from California, who knows? We might have ended up there.
Wow.
Kind of a weird thing that I didn't realize when picking the movie. But the way that he ends his tenure and the relationship with the principal, who that also should deserve a lot of credit in real life, although is just kind of comic relief in this movie. It isn't like the extreme success story at the end of what happened. So I love that this movie kind of encapsulates the peak, like the best part of the story. I mean, there are other cool things like having a stamp with his face on it. The idea that when, unfortunately, the man himself did pass away in 2010. So, but the idea that before that, for some of his treatments, Lou Diamond Phillips and some of the other cast members of this successful movie were able to kind of help him out so that he wasn't alone. So I do like that the true peak of what he could do for so many of these kids is the point of the movie, and it's not something that they devote any time to, like the end of his life or the end of his career. I think the movie has the perfect amount.
Mm-hmm.
I did wind up wondering what happened to some of the kids, so I looked it up. So I'm like, what does one AP Calc credit do for you in college if you may be behind in other areas? What does this confidence do? They wound up being lawyers and heads of boards and everything else. I was reading about all these kids. They went to Stanford, Harvard, a lot of MIT for one of them. So they were very, very successful. I was stunned at just one class really building that confidence in kids. And I think everyone's probably had this experience. I had a lot of not great teachers, but one of the teachers that actually believed in me really turned my perception of myself around. And I still remember it. She just said, "You're smart enough to get by."
Aww.
And it was because I was very, very lazy. And she's like, "It works for you." She goes, "You're smart enough that this works for you, but if you ever want better."
Wow.
I'd never been told I was smart until Mrs. Clark.
She good teacher? She was a good teacher.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark.
Yeah. And it's amazing, though. That's a really impressive thing. And I think that this movie this movie shows what one good teacher can do. It's pretty powerful, really.
Yeah.
So, now I thought it was interesting that Edward James Olmos wrote all of his dialogue in conjunction with Jaime Escalante. He shadowed him in real life situations that were depicted for the film. And Olmos said the dialogue in the scene where Escalante confronts the ETS investigators about the cheating allegations were word for word what Escalante told him of those accounts. And so they had built quite a kinship as well.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily look that similar. When you see a picture of Jaime Escalante, the comb-over is there. But I mean,
Comb-over is there, yeah.
but on the other hand, it's not about the physical similarities. I believe the people who know Jaime said that Edward James Olmos really put the care into getting that character right. I think that was cool. That added to the authenticity of this movie.
Well, it's good that he gets one character right.
Oh man,
I'm with you, but I'm kind of ducking the sci-fi fans.
I was gonna say shaking fist angrily. I think he does just fine. But yeah, this film is inaccurate, and the students in Escalante's class did have to retake the test though, and I think that is just one of those unbelievable parts of the story. Am I wrong? Aren't these college AP tests like the SAT where nobody's getting the exact same tests from the person who's sitting to the right or left? Like, aren't they getting 3 or 4 copies of the test? Like, isn't cheating pretty hard to even do?
It was the same for me. Everyone got the same test.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that seems like an oversight. Like, again, like the SAT, like they even warn you, which is fair. Like, don't look at people's papers on the SAT because they're not taking the same test as you. Your number 17 is not their question number 17. So
during one of my brief stints as an instructor at I don't want to affiliate myself with the university, so I won't say.
The university. Just say that. I love it.
At the university, I would hand out 2 versions of my tests for my statistics course. One of them was Form A, and one of them was Form B. Form A had a yellow cover sheet, Form B had a green cover sheet, and I made sure to split them up among all 35 students, and they were the exact same test. They just were told and lied to by me that they were different. So don't look at your neighbor's Scantron, it'll be different. That was a lie.
Ooh, wow. Professor Melbardis, the mental game, though. Mental game.
Mr. Melbardis, I always was sure to say, please do not call me Professor. I have not earned that title, and I didn't. But yeah, that was a little trick of the trade. I don't remember in my instance, SAT or ACT. I don't remember asking about if it was the same or knowing if it was the same. I feel like ETS is still the name in like testing. Or it has been forever, and so I don't know if it clearly the way that Andy Garcia and his colleagues the way that they describe what happened was it was some type of match in like logical decision making that should have been wrong. The movie tries to insert a reason for that happening. It's when they're looking at, I believe, a sinusoidal curve, and they're looking at something like, oh no, it should be like 0 to 2 limit or something, and he gets it wrong. All the students get the same wrong answer, something like that. They try to fit that in there. I don't know if that landed to everybody watching this movie.
Yeah.
Other things that occurred to me is like, you get your scratch paper, and you don't get to walk out with that either. They should have had the scratch paper, meaning how they showed their work. That should have been enough to not accuse them of cheating also. And then lastly, rather than making them or putting them in a position where they have to take the whole test again, I would think a mini test, again, of coming up with unique problems and just saying, like, here's 10 problems. If you exhibit the ability to do this cross-section, then yeah, you got it. But a full-out retest to me is so extreme and just kind of over the top.
I'm going to use a former teacher of mine's phrase here and respond to that with, well, Russell, that would have made too much sense.
Yeah, I found the problem solving of the ETS group to be really disappointing.
We didn't have scratch paper for our AP Calc exam. It was just, here's your paper. This is what you do. Go ahead and write it on. I got a 2. You needed a 3 for college credit. So Thank you to my AP Calc teacher, who was not Mr. Escalante. He was not. He was not chemo. He was not funny.
He was Mr. Schiff or whoever that other dude was, the music teacher.
Yes.
The most timid actor you. I teach music, actually.
He did kind of look like Mr. Escalante.
Oh, man. Actually, right. He had the glasses for sure.
Yes.
And the acne.
And the comb over.
And like
yes.
the old acne, yeah,
yes.
for sure.
Yes, but other than that, he did not believe in any of us. He just showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, now, again, let's talk about the cast here a little bit. One of the things that caught me, not only in addition to just getting to know Jaime Escalante, is Edward James almost went through a hair thinning process to get that actual...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It happens on its own anyway. It's painful, so I wouldn't go running into a hair thinning process for sure. I'd be like, you get me a bald cap and put it on the makeup department. But kudos to him. He committed to this.
Some of us, our hair grows back. So I'm gloating a little bit over Russell right now.
Boo.
He also got to gain 20 pounds, which I would think would be a lot of fun. Now, taking it off, not so much, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, that's another thing. Edward James almost is a good bit taller.
Yeah.
And even still, he's a good bit more slender than Jaime.
But,
yeah.
I liked the posture and the I feel as if throughout the movie the walking gait, the posture, but perhaps it's the wardrobe as well. It does a really good job of setting him up as not a fit man, as sort of an older. The clothing can go a long way. Pre-record, we were talking a little bit about George Clooney. And I remember in the movie Burn After Reading, the wardrobe makes him look 20 years older, just kind of like normal dude. And it can do that, like wardrobe can really have that kind of effect on how an actor's performance comes across.
Plus adding lines like, nice floor. What are these, pine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Edward James Olmos, though, remained close friends with Escalante all the way up until his death. I just think that kinship in that part of the story is really cool here. Like when you really get to know somebody, it reminds me of a story here in Pittsburgh. The movie Fences was filmed, and Denzel Washington was in a movie of a prominent black writer, August Wilson. And August Wilson was from Pittsburgh. And August Wilson's previous home was part of a kind of a center and a very African-American part of the community, and they wanted to restore the house. And it's amazing. Denzel Washington put his efforts into raising funds, and he raised a large amount of money to help the August Wilson Foundation and to restore the old home. So it's just one of those things where an actor takes a role, but they fall in love with the person they're portraying in a very inspiring way. And just as like Edward James Olmos and the Lou Diamond Phillips and the other actors were there for Jaime Escalante, I really love those stories when the person touches the actor so much that the actor feels the desire to reciprocate. Anything else on the cast that you did want to call out, Dustin?
I really like when you feel like the teenagers are teenagers. And so just a huge kudos to all of the actors portraying Lupe and Javier, the kind of the bookworm with the glasses sitting at the front of the class, Claudia, the kind of the stylish girl. There's like a 30-second, we'll call it a monologue, where she's explaining the importance of calculus to her mom, who is coloring her hair, and it's like it's the only moment with her beside the moment when she confronts Jaime about using her social life as comedy, that like she doesn't get that many moments. But I feel as if some of the teenage style reactions from this cast are believable. I get a kick out of that, especially considering how many it's become just so common for young looking 20-somethings to play teenagers and everything.
Or mid 30-somethings.
Or mid 30-somethings, like myself. So like the idea of that seeming believable and not being distracted by it was enjoyable.
They definitely hit all of the typologies of students in the 80s. There have been some other typologies that have emerged since then, but they definitely did the Breakfast Club thing and checked their boxes. They got geeky guy, they got rock and roll band guy, they got jock guy, they got popular girl, and the
nerdy girl, and
outcast tough guy, bad boy.
Yes.
Yeah, so they definitely did strong characterizations of them, but in doing so, its odds are almost everybody out there will identify with one of them, I think, is what they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably an amalgamation of all the students that he had over 5-6 years. So yeah, he probably did have a rocker guy who was just concerned with music, or the nerdy quiet girl. Well, he clearly did. That was actually based on a real person, but the popular girl who's just dating. Well, he kept making jokes like, "You have too many boyfriends and not enough time."
Yeah, so I did think that this movie followed the students around a little more than I wanted to at times, in somewhat criticism of the director's storytelling. Like, there were some scenes where Edward James almost had no connection to it, like where two of his students were kind of falling in love, and I felt like, I don't know, maybe it's just because they're not necessarily real people. I felt like I kind of wanted to keep maybe it's just because Edward James Olmos is that awesome that in this role that I kind of wanted the camera to stay on him, because I didn't care as much about the students' particular moments when Olmos is not around.
Well, this is a weird moment for the show because I'm usually the one that says screw those kids, but yeah, I wanted more of these kids. I didn't feel like we got enough personal attachment to them, so I wanted more moments at the beach with them. I wanted more moments of Poncho being an idiot and just saying, with his girlfriend, he's just like, well, it's a summer thing. I'm like, oh, you bonehead.
You're not supposed to say that, Poncho. Yes. No.
Not out loud.
That is the incorrect statement.
No, actually, if it were a bigger part of the story, or if perhaps this was like a 6-part to 10-part TV series, then perhaps we jump into the other interpersonal relationships between these kids. So, like, I do like their personal stories. If we're going to focus on them, we need more than an 1.5-hour movie. Strange, also, by the way, that I got an 1.5-hour movie. Most of my movies recently have been like 3-hour hitters, so I was glad to get one I could just knock out in less than 2 hours.
Well, you can monetize this into another one. You're right, Dustin. Everything has to have a sequel. So this movie, being a success at the time, would have to have a sequel. So the Lupe love story and Stand and Deliver 2, still standing.
Don't stand so close to me.
Yeah.
No.
Stand and Deliverance. Oh, nope, that's no good.
No. No, we don't want that one so much. Yeah. This movie's got it all. Standing and delivering.
The Domino's pizza guy.
This movie has everything.
So, what do you think about Ramón Menéndez's work here as the director? And also, by the way, Ramón Menéndez works as part of the writer as well.
The one thing I wanted to say was with Olmos being the lead and being a compelling lead that you do want to follow, there's a lot of time spent on him. After the action of a scene seems to be over, there's several times throughout the entire movie, times when the camera's just kind of still on him, and what you're doing is you're getting a chance to watch Escalante in this situation think through what he's going to do next, or kind of figure out what has just happened when he's new to the school, or when he's trying to decide, am I going to be rude to this person who's ignoring me? Or even towards the end when he's waiting for the second round of calls about the scores, he's just kind of looking kind of down at the ground. Like you see the focus, and this is, Ramón Menéndez's direction or choice to do this is, what does this character who is thinking about things and obviously uses his mind to overanalyze decisions so much so that the stress breaks him down. You get to see him in kind of real time, go over in his mind what he's going to do. That stood out to me, particularly on the second rewatch.
Yeah.
The Cuban influence, I was happy to see that he was from Cuba, but he grew up in California. But before they established this was East LA, like, are we in Havana? There's a lot of those older 70s and 60s cars. And if you look at pictures of Havana and Cuba,
well, they like the classic cars for sure.
yeah, that's what's driven all along the streets, and a lot of the music and things like that. It's like, okay, this strikes me as a very Cuban mixture of a movie, and sure enough, Ramón Menéndez, that's where he grew up. So I picked up a little bit of that. He really hasn't done a whole lot else. Like one TV episode of Tales from the Crypt, which I cannot positively say if I've seen, but a lot of these are just, it's strange. They make such a great movie and then money for nothing, and I have no idea what else.
Yeah. First-time writer and director Ramón Menéndez and his fellow UCLA film school graduate Tom Muska secured the film rights to Jaime Escalante's story for only $1. So he just wanted to have the story told.
It's like Stephen King.
What is that?
Stephen King sells a bunch of his novels to film students for a buck.
Didn't know that.
That's
part.
cool to know.
Yeah. So when the project was rejected by independent studios repeatedly, filmmakers financed the program with grants and endowments from institutions, including PBS. So this was a story that had a hard time getting told.
The more you know.
Yeah. But I in a way, that's kind of fitting. You have to fight. That's kind of part of the message of this movie. Whatever you do, you have to do it so much that you can overcome.
You've got to have ganas.
Yeah, you have to overcome. One of the students mentioned whatever it is that you have to do it really well, and then you have to do it beyond that to overcome that being a minority. So this being a story about minorities, it kind of showed even and reflected it in the making of this movie as a point that I kind of wanted to say.
It is Escalante saying that you're going to be in a job interview and they're going to look at you differently because of your last name and because of the complexion of your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being done. And this actually happens a lot in the movie where there's something interesting, some type of potential lesson being said, but the camera is actually on someone else and they're acting away from the dialogue, or in this case, just like a sentence being said, is compelling enough to where you're focusing on what they're doing. When he's saying that thing about people are going to treat you different because of your complexion and your last name, what you're doing is you're looking at Angel, you're looking at Louis Dimes, chew on a toothpick. Look, he's handing out those weekly tests, and he's trying to figure out, like, he's looking like trying to get involved. So your focus is on him, but that's when that lesson is happening. But they don't care about your problems, and neither do I. There's so much as a guy who has taught, and as someone who this was another reason I chose this movie, is because this is a cool topic to me. When you get those kinds of lessons, saying something along the lines of the students will rise to meet these expectations, like that he knows this will happen, and it did. You have to lay out what they need, and what they need is ganas, and I'm going to give them to you because I'm the champ. Like, I love, so all of the in classroom stuff is so great.
I did appreciate the other perspective that was coming from the board advisor. Like, she had good intentions, but she was clearly in the wrong of saying, hey, don't give them these high expectations, because when they fail, these aren't the kids that get back up from it. And
Yep.
I think that's a lot of people that are trying to shelter these kids rather than
I
push
hated
them.
that character.
Yeah.
But I think it's real.
I appreciated that viewpoint of, okay, I can see what they're trying to do. Of these kids don't bounce back, but
Yep. If they try and they don't succeed, it will shatter what little self-confidence they have.
yeah.
Which is, like, you're a parent. You guys are both parents, and you want to think about what's best, and that happens a lot in this movie. And almost like, not just to a fault, but almost problematically, Escalante's character in this movie is as if only he knows what's best. you have Anna's dad who runs the restaurant. Excuse me, sir, I'm her dad, not you. There is, I think he goes past the limit of trying to decide what's best for his kids. And obviously this is the whole point of the movie. But as someone who's been a part of post-secondary education, I'm definitely not a guy who's like, nope, college is for everybody. You should all pursue college. There's the idea of, if you've got an opportunity as a forklift operator, that's great for a lot of people. Obviously, this movie is focusing on the potential that character had, but I see both the like angel and devil part of that, like the director of the mathematics department, whatever her role was. I see both sides in her mindset.
Oh man, I wanted to take like Michael Fassbender from the Jobs movie and like have him yell at her like, "Get out of here!" like with spit like coming out of his lips, like saying like, "Good enough isn't good enough." Like and like send her mediocrity out the door.
Yeah, that's who you want in education. Is Steve Jobs.
I just wanted somebody to like. I really hated that character, and I don't know.
Raquel,
yeah,
the department chair.
I felt like that is wrong. I think these kids are incredibly resilient. They deal with an enormous defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat. Their whole life's nothing but defeat, and they're actually really resilient because they're still standing and delivering.
Yes, thank you.
But they are still standing there. These are actually really strong kids, and when given hope to get out of it, you got to take it. And so to say that you're going to shelter them by saying like, don't give them false hope, well, they might come up short, but they're in no worse of a place than they are when you put the really low expectations on them anyway. And so I liked that this also brought forth that part of the education system, which, teaching is really rewarding and, helping people with their future. But yeah, the politics and the system of teaching, I don't want any part of that. So, I mean, I'm glad that they showed what he, as a good teacher who's willing to kind of just break the system and to go beyond the, I would say the naysayers that come his way. I liked that part of this movie. And that was one of the things that made me like this character so much. She was a bit of a renegade who just didn't take the program for what it was and then said, all right, these are the problems we're supposed to give to the kids this year. And this is we'll just get you ready for your standard test and call it a day. I like the line when he said, do you want to work on the cars or do you want to design the cars?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's him recognizing that Pancho has this potential and that with the direction, should he want it? Should he want the direction, which is a conflict for him throughout the movie? Calculus or pursuing this could lead to something better than settling.
Yeah, that was a very good I liked that climax. So when I said I didn't like the stories of the kids out of the class, I liked them when they were reacting to Jaime's character. So when Jaime was in the car with Pancho, I liked that scene. I just didn't like Pancho doing the other stuff.
You're just thinking about the turn. You're not thinking about where we're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
But for some people like Chuco, finger man, he couldn't take it and he just walks out.
That kid's so good as like a high school bully. Like,
yes, he is.
Like I had like 3 or 4 people just like enter my head, just like, oh man, this actor really makes me think of like people who like make me very uncomfortable. Like I went to school with, and like not like directly, like I didn't see people wearing a hairnet that like made me uncomfortable. Like, but like the mentality, the like, I'm just waiting to get in a fight. Like I want to get in a fight with anybody so I can show you how tough I am. And like, yeah.
So, I had a finger man try and pick a fight with me as well.
Oh man, I think every school has a finger man.
Yes.
And I also like showing a teacher, like make him put him in a place in front of everybody. And I love it when the bully gets, humbled.
Yeah. He's doing the multiplication tables on his fingers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty neat trick. I hadn't actually seen that.
Yeah. But I mean, it was also...
are you talking about the trick where he goes, I know the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s and flips on the bird? Or are you talking about the trick where you can use your fingers to do your times tables for real?
Yeah, for the multiples of 9. I'd never seen that.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I didn't get that one either. I had the little plastic button matrix that you push the buttons
Yes.
down,
Mhm.
and you could see the answer once you push it down.
Yeah,
So
just memorize it.
remarkably low tech in comparison to today's time. So this is now Retro Education Roundtable as well too. So
We used
All
our
right, I'm down.
abacuses.
Exclusive content.
spin-off podcast. Nobody will buy this on Patreon.
It comes with a t-shirt.
Do you remember the TI Fit 28 calculator by Solar Instruments? I did.
I do want to say, I know we're not to superlatives, but I had to get this hidden gem out. Somebody says, "Hey man, I can get a solar calculator with a dozen donuts."
Yeah.
When they're at the little snack shop later, you can see the sign that says "Free solar calculator with a dozen donuts." I don't know if you guys noticed that. It is advertised when Pancho is bringing the hot dogs over to Lupe and Tito. It actually says that in the window. I loved it.
Nice.
Nice detail find in there. I like that. Although the film is set in Garfield High School in East Los Angeles, for some reason of which I couldn't find out, most of it's filmed in Roosevelt High School in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles. I don't know why. Maybe they've renovated Garfield into a point where when they filmed this movie, it no longer kind of represented the time period that they're portraying. It's kind of odd that that's kind of a rival school.
Yeah, it's the crosstown rival, yeah.
Yeah, so that one kind of had me asking why do that. There's outside shots of Garfield in here, but most of it's actually filmed in Roosevelt. So, and then one of the things that I actually thought was interesting, when you look at it online, its grade school's rating is not all that bad. It has a 94% high school graduation rate, which this movie depicted a bleaker situation. Their college readiness is well below the California average, but one thing that did really catch me is it seemed exaggerated in the movie, but honestly, to this day, the school is 99% Hispanic still.
Yeah.
So, and as I mentioned, it was one of those things where I couldn't help but just dig into it a little bit. Schools are hyper segregated, and across the country, schools where there are no white students or very, very, very few white students has tripled since a 91 survey that was done by UCLA, and that's across the country. So what's interesting is it's more pronounced now. This kind of environment that they're depicting here is actually growing to be. I said before, this film is very relevant from its social issues, actually from its educational standpoint. As well as this is a story that probably needs to be reviewed again, and maybe it should be remade, not because this movie is not good enough, but just because the messages in this movie are more than ever relevant. And if you think that that's all just Texas or California or even red states hyper-segregating, that's not the case either. It's actually most pronounced in northeastern states. So
Wow.
It's one of those really, really interesting things once you start to dig into it. There are a lot of social issues that are represented in this.
Yeah.
Did your high school have separate buildings separated by outdoor areas with like outdoor lockers or like areas to sit and eat lunch?
In junior high, we had a couple of like expansion portables, but that was it. No, we didn't. I mean, West Virginia is not a place that has nice enough weather for most of the school year to be able to get away with that. So, no.
My school didn't either, but I was just thinking to myself, I'm wondering if students today would recognize the like exterior shots of that outdoor area in like LA schools, because I was actually just thinking about, would they recognize the relationship between teacher and student, and kind of how I do believe that teenagers, even the toughest teenagers, when they meet an adult, whether it's a teacher or a principal or somebody that like tells them to go do something, how even the toughest guys in this movie, like, you know, he says, "Hey, sit at the front of the class," and he sits at the front of the class. Or he says, "Stay behind afterwards," and he stays behind afterwards. So I'm wondering if like there's a disconnect between what that teacher-student relationship is in this movie compared to what they might experience today. You know, it's been years, of course, since I've been in high school, so it just seems as if you were to show this to a 16-year-old, if it would even land quite the same way.
It's a good question. I think with the way, again, a lot of these social, educational, and societal issues are coming up, I'm willing to say it might resonate more today. That's just my guess.
Oh, I'm positive. Although there's also backlash. This gets shown to kids all the time of basically, will rise up to your expectations, and there's also kind of a white savior background to it that becomes problematic as well. So it has to be used correctly. Freedom Riders is another one that gets shown to a lot of kids, and it's basically like, hey, you're poor, do better. These kids do better. But the teachers aren't really putting in the investments. They're just saying, these guys did it, you can. And, it's being used as a cudgel rather than, actual motivation.
That's another reason the story is pretty cool, to your point. It shows somebody who got out, stood out, succeeded at a very high level, and then turned it all away to come back and teach people to help elevate everybody that he could within his Hispanic community where he lives. And to your point, that's a good point, that it's not just the white savior thing. And also, I got to give them credit, because at this point they were making that mistake a lot. The cast is Hispanic too. So the students in the classes, you didn't have white guy with accent, just doing, this was still common practice in the 80s. So because it was an independent film and it was a story about a Hispanic community, about a Hispanic teacher, this is possibly part of the reason why it didn't get picked up by the studios. But I mean, credit to them for doing it the right way and holding out for it. And I'm glad it got some award buzz, because it brought attention to a movie that I think deserves attention.
Yeah.
So, now, in terms of the look and feel of the environments, or sorry, not the environments, but in terms of the wardrobe, we're in the 80s, this is a hard time for me. Dustin, are there any fun wardrobe points that you wanted to point out here?
I'm certain there are a lot of fun wardrobe points. I think that what I wanted to say about this, if we're going to talk about it in a general way instead of like the best way, was that I think TV shows or anything that tries to hit an 80s aesthetic tries too hard to hit the things that stand out to us. For instance, if I were to make a joke answer, it would be like windbreaker material for the early 90s. Or I would talk about, certain, like the high-waistedness of denim for certain times. I thought, and because it was only like 6 to 7 years removed from the time it was showing, the length of the skirts for the females, based on the likely high, like the overbearing Latina parents, the idea of that these are likely all Catholic kids. But you don't have like too much short skirt type stuff. I really dug Louis Dimes' character with the chino pants, the high waisted,
big chino pants. They those were huge legs.
And you've got the what has become the stereotypical shirt with the top buttoned. I think there was a lot of stuff that I don't want to get into too many details, because we will do that a little bit later, but. I think this is done better than what modern. Like, I'm thinking of Stranger Things that goes back, or of modern movies that go back to the 80s. I think do it a little too cartoonishly, and this was about as seemingly accurate as I could think of it to be.
Well, this isn't as removed, I will admit.
Right,
I felt like
a couple years later.
This is telling you the story of the early 80s, and it's made in the later 80s. And I honestly thought I had kind of transported us, and I throughout the movie I'm thinking we're in the later 80s actually. And I didn't feel like that footstep, because I didn't have that footstep coming out of the 70s feeling. I felt like we were decisively in the 80s, but
it was the hair did it.
Maybe. Brutal glasses.
The hair ruled.
Like the glasses had left 70s like wire framey glasses, and these were the rough glasses. Like this was a rough time to have visual correction, I think.
I was wondering if Jaime wore that particular style jacket and cabbie hat.
There's a picture of him, yeah.
Which is why that choice was made for the character. Like, it kind of caught me off guard. I wonder also if he did keep it in his briefcase when he wasn't wearing it, if you noticed that was done in the movie.
I hope so. But yeah, there was a picture of him right next to... I just lost his name, the actor.
Edward James Olmos?
Yes, Edward Olmos. And same outfit. So yeah.
Yeah. And in fairness, on the real actual Jaime, when he wears that real hat, it actually is quite flattering for his real comb over that isn't so good. So it covers up just the right amount.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah, it was a good choice. Soundtrack. I actually felt like this was a big miss for the movie. I felt like the director didn't know how to use the music very well. And I'm not just going to pick on like the end song that comes on. That's pretty rough. But
that may cost an entire store.
Yeah. The distracting moments though here and there, like whether it be the tense moments or the dramatic moments, or I'll tell you one that like Mary pointed out, she was watching the movie with me. At one point there was a fight between the students and the teacher goes to break it up and they're just like playing like these strings like and like I'm just like, this is like a bad sitcom, like this is rough. And it was a tense moment, like you should kind of be worried, like this is the atmosphere that we're in. And yeah, the cheapness of the music was a bummer. I don't know whether you can just go ahead and try and dive into the local scene. Maybe that Hispanic community has a special, maybe you can get the right music with certain strings and stuff like that. But this felt like too much synthesizer, too much cheap, echoey guitar. And that doesn't serve the time well. I'm sorry, it doesn't serve the movie well.
You're right. I will go ahead and say, and I'll make it a flat statement. Of all the movies I've covered on this podcast, this is the worst soundtrack of any of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I have to agree.
I think we can all agree it was bad. It doesn't hit. It seems wrong. It seems like inexperience working with it. Regardless of what the truth is, it came across poorly.
The first note that I have is beautiful shot of the LA River, and then overly bright panpipes, opening douchey drums. Uh-oh, this isn't a good start. And then later...
Uh-oh, ay Dios mío, oh, no.
And then later on I wrote, these cheap bendy guitar notes belong in an 80s porn dialogue scene, not here in this good movie. So,
yeah, it's bad.
It did. I go back to Dangerous Minds. Like, Dangerous Minds was elevated by its soundtrack. In and of itself, it's not a great movie, but it's remembered because of Gangster's Paradise.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it's a great song. So yeah, it's a shame here that we just don't get that soundtrack that accompanies a great movie.
Yeah, they needed some Coolio.
They do. Go get Coolio. I don't know how relevant it is for a Latino.
Guys, you heard it. It's the motto of Retro Movie Roundtable every week. Go get Coolio.
Yes. Amadeus, what it really needed was Coolio.
I think Mozart would have gotten along with Coolio.
Yes.
Like, I think they would have been hanging out with their outlandish hairstyles.
Go Sing My Heart Will Go On. That's fine. It would be improved.
Yeah, that's right. So, are you guys ready to hand out some awards for this movie, though?
Absolutely.
All right, Dustin,
Yes,
why don't you
sir.
start us off with who's your MVP? And I think I know who this is going to be.
Actually, my MVP for the movie is Jaime Escalante himself.
Oh,
who the story is
outside the
based on.
box. And that's a great choice.
And I mean, clearly Edward James Olmos does a great job portraying him, and the way that this, because it's so close to the true story, I'd rather give the credit to the man himself. I believe this is great for showing what tough love is. A lot of times tough love is, unfortunately, just the tough part without the love part. That's easier to do the cruelty and the directness and almost like harsh tones without the requisite love on the other end. And I have to imagine that this is the best version of tough love I think I've seen. So that's my answer is Jaime himself.
Nice. Chad, what about you? Who's your MVP?
I'm glad Dustin did it because I was very tempted, but yeah, I'm going Edward James Olmos. Just every time he was on screen, I was entranced. I loved his performance, and even if it's very, very true to Jaime, he delivered. So, great job.
Edward James Olmos gets it for me. I actually don't often see an actor dive this much into the connection with the real person and being there for him as his health declines later medically. I mean, doing the hair thinning process, physically committing to the role, gaining weight. He put all of himself in it. And when you say, like, when you get nominated for Best Actor, and that to me is commitment to the role. Great job. And I think he helped tell the story of Jaime Escalante, and then also really encapsulated that for all the time, because Jaime is gone at this point, and because this movie is still living on, we're still talking about it to this day.
Yeah.
So, Dustin, who's your best supporting? Is it Louis Dimes?
It was going to be Louis Dimes, but because I do appreciate what he does and his role. I'm actually going to go with Will Gotay as Pancho. And maybe you can tell because I talked about that character so much. I feel like he's necessary. What is known is that Louis Dimes' character, Angel, is very smart and is playing the role of thug friend. But what we know about Pancho, he's the only one out of the final group that scores a 3. He's the one that's most conflicted. It's possible that this is actually like my favorite character, not best supporting actor, but I liked Will Gotay. I don't know him in anything else, but I feel as if like that journey of that character was maybe one of my favorite. We'll call it side stories. So
I'm outnumbered on this one officially.
I do like what he brought to the movie in terms of like his presence when he's on screen. I enjoy. So
it's
that's
a
why
summer thing.
I'm giving it to him.
Yeah. Chad, who's your best supporting?
Going with Lou Diamond Phillips.
Louis Dimes.
It was a very difficult character to like. The character himself makes very irrational decisions at times, and it's like, I really want to hate this kid, but the performance was just heartfelt, and you really connect with the conflict of, okay, I want to get out of the gang life, but I don't really know how. And I want to do better, but I've got this sick grandmother and everything else that's going on. He's still got that rough edge to him, but he's really rounding out through this movie.
Yeah, that scene where he's taunting the police, he's definitely walking the line of getting arrested himself, but I thought that was a really interesting scene to your point.
Yeah.
When he was like, I got to get out of this, and this is my chance of like going big and blowing it up and saying, I'm gone. I'm too crazy for you, crazy guy. But bold move, it could backfire very easily.
Yeah.
With a different set of policemen, it could have.
Yeah, do not taunt the cops.
Yeah, don't do that. My best supporting actor, I'm going to go with Andy Garcia, actually. I just really hated him in this. I mean, I really wanted to go with Lou Diamond Phillips, but the degree of contempt that I had for Andy Garcia's character, it's an actor playing a despicable situation, the retesting and stuff, but he nailed the I hate this guy. So Andy Garcia was actually originally cast to be one of the students.
Yeah.
And Jaime Escalante one of the students. And later he convinced the director to give him the role of Dr. Ramirez. And it was revealed by Garcia himself and in the 98 interview when the movie was released that he had promoted himself up into this antagonist character. So that's a cool story too of, he's a little bit young for the role that he's playing here, but he definitely nails that goobery elitist kind of vibe on this one. But I'm glad you
shows
said
the importance of good skincare routine. He's got some incredible skin.
Yep.
Or am I wrong in saying maybe that's just because he's playing opposite Edward James Olmos?
that does help. Yeah, it is like a Clearasil commercial. Like once the translucent circle goes in front of his face, then it looks like that.
Yeah.
That's how that's how it works, right? Like the cartoon blemish that just magically goes away. All right, but I'm glad. By the way, I'm glad you did pick Lou Diamond Phillips because I also want to give a shout out to that. Great job on that one. So, hidden gem, Dustin.
I've got 2, minor gem, major gem. We'll start with minor gem. Javier is reading the book Dune. We'll just say that for our other hosts.
Yeah.
And the major gem is actually Lou Diamond Phillips' role as kind of a comedy, a comedy relief in this. He's funny in this movie.
Yes, he is.
The character's funny. That's not the thing that's not the driving force of his character. But when he points out that the principal and the chair come in and he starts saying the late. When Tito in front of him falls asleep, he raises his hand and just without saying a word, just points down at him to kind of get his friend in trouble. I think the comedy of that character is maybe not. It's not at the forefront of that character, so that's why it's hidden gem to me.
Yeah, and I actually thought it was both touching and funny when he showed up on the Christmas time to his teacher's
That
house.
was funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, something smells good in here.
Yeah, like it was touching in that he's like, I do have a sick grandmother, like,
Yes.
and I want you to see that because I really care and I want back in, and I need a third chance. But like on the other
Mhm.
hand, it was also funny. It's just like, we're coming in for dinner now.
You brought your abuela? That's low.
Oh yeah, and he knows it too. That was very good.
Chad Hidden Gem.
Daniel Villarreal. He plays Chuco Fingerman.
He's good.
Yeah. Great punk. I kind of wanted more of him after I wanted his life to turn around after Angel just leaves.
Well, maybe in Stand Delivered 2, the Pancho and Lupe love story, still standing. Colon's still standing.
Still standing. Yeah.
You can have more of him. Maybe he'll come back and try and lure Angel back into the gang life.
You don't need calculus.
If you remember, after he pushes him down and Angel walks away, and this I thought was a very teen thing to do. Like, well done. Where are you going? And the last thing he says in that scene is, "Come back." Like, come on, this wasn't for real. Like this argument. Wait, are we actually fighting? Or, no,
Right.
wait, come back. I thought that was like accurate for how these are children. And children think like, no, for real, come back. No, I'm walking away, dude.
Yeah,
Vato.
that was a sharp moment for sure. Mine Hidden Gem. I have to do two. Sorry, Estelle Harris as the secretary is George's mother from Seinfeld. Like her
Yeah.
voice, like I recognized her voice and processed it before I saw the face and like processed it. So, but I also want to give Fernando Escalante is Bodie Olmos in this. So they actually got the actor's son to
Yep.
play his son, and I always like stuff like that.
That is cool.
Recast, Dustin. If you had to recast somebody and put somebody in their place, who's it gonna be?
If you have to recast somebody, and so I was thinking about one of, like, let's just say a kid that should have some focus. I'm in my head. I go, I wonder what Luis Guzman is doing right now. Like, what is he doing right now? The same shtick he does in everything, only maybe he's a teenager. Let's throw him in the mix.
Nice.
So he's Javier or he's Pancho or, so I don't know who he is, but he's someone. So that's how I do that. That's my cheap way of getting around recasting someone is I just toss a Luis Guzman in.
Okay.
Alright.
Now, Chad, who are you gonna recast?
Mark Elliott's Armando Tito Guitarro. That's
Yeah.
The incomparable.
yeah, the wannabe musician. When I read that, I was like, "Oh, his last name was Guitarro, and he wants to be in a band." That's a bit heavy-handed there, but whatever. I'm gonna recast him with Emilio Estevez.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just made this a lot better. Yeah, I actually thought he was the weakest student as well, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for somebody who's even weaker than the weakest student. Like, I didn't like neighbor computer guy. Like, I thought he was bad at every turn. Every line that he had was heavy to me.
He was just
Tyde
the
Kierney.
annoying, stereotypical white guy next door. Like he played that part to perfection.
It was I don't know. So bear with me on this one. I actually want to go younger on this one. I think I'd like to have Kevin Bacon
Okay.
do this role.
Well, why though? Why Kevin Bacon in that role? Because now we can like him. Do we want
No.
to like the neighbor now?
He's just trying to cheat in 60 degrees of separation.
Oh, make the game easier than it already is. Sorry,
Every movie
we
should
shouldn't-
have. Every movie should have. Everything's better with bacon. I'll start by saying that. But for one, I think that he can have that like somewhat of a. There's a degree of to be resented in this character that you have of like the privilege that you don't quite realize that you have, and he's not meaning to be. But like, oh yeah, my daughter does that in high school.
Yep.
There's a little bit of a dislikability. His house, if you look closely, is very modern. It's very cool, even though it's sitting right next door to Jaime's house, which is not special. And so I think that contrast would be more pronounced with Kevin Bacon. So I'm getting him not just because he's a good actor, and this movie needs more good actors, as you both put more good actors into this. I'm getting him because I think that I think he's good actor, but I also think that he can convey inadvertently coming off as being a little bit dislikable
And he's more handsome.
Well,
You know,
yes.
like the dislike. Yeah, like that helps too. Oh yeah, I'm picking up what you're laying down now.
Yeah,
Brett.
yeah, exactly. Like the guy who just kind of has it all and doesn't realize he has it all, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And he's not going out of his way to be a jerk about it, but he can, yeah. So yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Owen Wilson.
And at the end of this movie, when that terrible music plays, the only way that it could possibly be made better is with some dancing. And I think that he could come back and dance for us, and then I'd be like, "All right, okay, I get this now." Sorry. So yeah. Anyway, best shot, Dustin.
Best shot is during the scene. -2 + 2 =. -2 +, just fill the hole. Fill the hole. And when he looks down at Angel, anyone can do it. And he looks down at him, he goes, "I'll snap your neck like a toothpick." And at that moment, both Angel and his friend look up at, did my teacher just say this? That's the shot of like, oh, this guy's for real. Not the shot when he's wearing like the little paper hat like a fast food worker. Not any of the other lesson scenes. It's that one where he's, -2 + 2 =. That particular scene or shot is what
It's a low shot. It's from the student's vantage point. It shows that he's a little intimidating, and he knows that he needs to be intimidating with that character. That's a good point.
Teacher or not, they're not letting you bring a butcher's knife into school anymore.
Swedish Chef would have a hard time in the modern day school system. You're right. Fork.
No tolerance policy.
So, Chad, best shot of the movie.
Cocinero de Sweden.
Yeah, that's now my recast is for Jaime Escalante, the Swedish Chef. Very different.
in the living room.
Yeah, best shot for me. This wasn't really a cinematic film.
No, it's shot in a dingy, fluorescent, like lit high school. It's not a pretty movie.
School.
I'm going with one of the opening shots. Camera's practically on the ground in a riverbed, and you get a nice shot under the bridges. I'm like, this is a very wet cameraman right now.
This is a surprisingly good shot.
Yeah, I appreciate the dedication because that dude was miserable.
The 1 point perspective, like where you think you're on an ocean and then it turns up that you're right in the LA River and stuff like that. Yeah, that was good. Marred by the music, but yes. Best shot for me, Chad picked one of my top two, but I actually like the heart attack shot. It's actually difficult to do because he's going down the stairs and you have to move the camera. It zooms in on him, like grabbing his chest, and there's a disorienting feel. So this is not a pretty movie, as Chad said, cinematically, but the fear of what it's like to have a heart attack, which I've been fortunate enough to not have, you feel it in this scene, especially the head hit. Because like he switches, like they hit a landing and he moves on to another set of stairs.
Yeah.
And it looks painful in every way, and that's good camera work.
Yep, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good shot. Powerful shot.
Best scene, Dustin.
Best scene for me is the ETS classroom interrogation of the students with the whole group of students and the two gentlemen. There's a couple things that happen in this scene. One, there is a tenseness. Two, they're saying, "Hey, we're not cops. Just come on. Just somebody say something. Let us know." The next thing that happens is Javier stands up. He's the bookworm guy, and he walks past Andy Garcia and he gives him a look, very particular type of look that Angel notices and kind of gives him like you're acting tough, and he does. It kind of shows how these students rubbed off on each other. And then that scene kind of culminates with Angel pretending like, "Hey, why don't we just admit that we cheated? Yeah, I strangled him. His body's decomposing in my locker." and that leads to Pancho laughing the loudest laugh. The whole class is laughing at these two guys, and then he hits them with the two knuckles forward, which is now like kind of to me a great way to, like, if I'm on the road, somebody cuts me off, I'm gonna give them the two knuckles, like the FU knuckles, man. I loved that whole scene. I thought it showed this group of people that weren't a unit before, now are.
I love it when grown-ups with authority acting stupid are then made to feel stupid by teenagers. I like any scene like that. Plays the rebellious feel in that one. I love it. Chad.
Totally.
Yeah, what's your best scene?
I'm actually going to pick another scene with the students without Jaime again. It's the
no.
beach scene for me. I love
I
everyone.
did like the beach scene.
They're celebrating. They're running in with their clothes, and then Angel's got on nice clothes.
He doesn't want to.
He's like, "No, I'm not coming in. I'm not coming in." Like, just come in with your clothes, and he takes them all off and folds them on the beach. That was just a great scene of them bonding after they took their test.
Yeah, that shows that the students galvanized. This breakfast club assortment of all these typologies the students have come together just by giving up their entire summer to, which, is valuable as a teenager, together, and that would galvanize any group of people, quite certainly.
Yeah, it cost them money too, because like Pancho, he was going to work.
Yeah, and you saw it too when he returned to the classroom as well.
Yeah,
everybody genuinely was happy. So good moments.
Oh yeah,
good moments for that. But my best scene is actually going to come. I really like the combination of Angel and Jaime. And when Angel early in the movie comes to Jaime and says, "Can I have an extra book so that I don't have to be seen carrying it around?" And he says, "I'll give you 3. 1 for your locker, 1 for here in school, and 1 for at home." And he even says, like, this book's not in very good shape. Like, it shows that he cares. And I really like that. I have to keep up my appearances as being a tough guy, and the teacher, instead of, most people would just brush that off and say, "You're stupid, never act like an idiot." He just kind of got it, and he supported him and said, "Here you go." And early on, these two, to me, I wanted more focus on these two and less focus on the other students out of class. For some reason, these two and combined made for all the best
Had this story come out during peak TV, it would have been a great 6 to 10 episode series where we could focus on these relationships more.
Yeah.
Get on it, Netflix. Cancel it after 3 seasons like everything else.
Didn't Netflix recently do like a Selena-based series?
Ooh,
I
somebody
don't
wants
know.
to touch that again? That was done pretty well the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Best wardrobe moment, Dustin.
So there's a lot of good wardrobe in the movie. My favorite is the principal. They really nailed it. He looks like a principal. And his clothing, for some reason, the sleeves of his jacket are really, really thin, and that makes him look lankier. I'm just gonna ask a question to you guys. You're familiar with Super Mario?
Yeah.
You guys familiar with Wario?
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys familiar with Waluigi?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
That's the principal. I love him.
I like the trip you took us on there. Chad, best wardrobe.
I think the fishnet on Angel and the fact that Chemo calls him out for it. He calls him Nethead. I enjoyed the ridiculous wardrobe and the ridiculous call out.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Edward James Olmos' astoundingly bad comb over. Like, you would think that like any Hollywood movie makes anybody look better. To your point, like a principal looks better than a goofy actual principal. Like a teacher doesn't come off as being as frumpy in this one. Again, Edward James almost commits to it. Like there's something remarkably not cool and remarkably ordinary about him, and he took it to the nth degree. So good job. Change one thing, Dustin.
There's actually a lot of things I would change about this movie.
But it can only be one.
It can only be one. So I'm gonna choose the comparison between the justice system and the conflict between the ETS and the students. I think this was done to dumb it down for the audience. The whole thing, like, I thought in this country you were innocent until proven guilty. I think it's a bad comparison, and so I feel like the conflict at the end of this movie is flimsy. The guys are just doing their job they, especially because Andy Garcia's character comes from that neighborhood. He's not trying to target that neighborhood. There is, I think that relationship is like flimsy. That conflict ends up being flimsy. It needs to culminate in something, but I don't like that culmination, and I especially don't like the comparison with like guilty or not guilty or whatever. So that's the thing I would change. I don't know how to make it better. We got to eliminate the comparison to the justice system of innocent versus guilty.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Especially because it's not innocent versus guilty. When you go, you're either guilty or not guilty. There is no such thing as innocence. It's always been guilty or not guilty. That's where labeling theory comes from. Ray Lewis was found not guilty. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty. That's different than innocence, and I'm gonna back off now because I could keep going. I won't.
Yeah. Now, Chad, change one thing.
We've harped on it a lot, but I want better for this soundtrack. I feel like a soundtrack would really push this movie beyond even, it's great already, but it could be upper echelons. And unfortunately, budget reasons or whatever else.
I suspect that's part of it.
Yeah, we got what we got, and I'm sad about it.
Yeah. I'm tempted to go that way, but actually, I think there's something that bothers me even more than the soundtrack, and that's the retesting portion of this movie. It is false tension, and it should be shortened considerably. I want that time to be given to the focusing nature of the mentoring relationship of the teacher and his students, not the students, which their story is remarkable, but I don't want to see them sitting there taking a test for the second time with like more bad music playing as they're like sweating and taking their test and chewing on their pencils, and like it's like, I know they have this, they've already done it, and this fake tension of whether they'll pass it the second time, this is bad suspense in my opinion. This doesn't work, and they committed a lot of time to it. I didn't time it out, but I mean, I felt like it was like, we're in here for minutes too long. Give me another scene between Angel and Jaime instead of this.
I agree, but I think you're gonna wind up getting this in like a pitch meeting YouTube, where it's like a 5-minute difference between fail or not passing and then passing. It's like, oh, that sounds like it'll be difficult for him. No, it'll be super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yes, yeah, that I agreed, and so I felt like they were just, I don't know, you're in the back eighth of the movie at that point, and like I just feel like that's one more quote unquote turn that's not doing it for me. So
and this time the proctors are the two doctors.
I know.
That's gonna you're misusing their time. Their time is more valuable than that. They should be doing something else. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just
we ran out of money to pay extras, so
this whole scene was rubbing me wrong. Even the first pass, the second pass, then I started to really get stuck on it. So, Dustin, what's your best quote of the movie?
I was looking forward to going first because my best quote of the movie is, "Hey, Kimo, you proud of me? First dude here. Let's calculus." What's calculus is the best quote in the movie.
Chad, what's your best quote?
Do you think I want to do this? The Japanese pay me to do this. They're tired of making everything.
There's a really good line where Pancho is having a hard time and he's really frustrated, and the teacher goes, "Do you want me to do it for you?" And he goes, "Yes." He goes, "You're supposed to say no."
Yeah.
The honesty of Pancho.
Yeah, that's good.
I just liked the disappointment of just like, you're supposed to say no. I got a good laugh out of the teacher's reaction on that one. Although I did like the when he first walked into the classroom, someone said it was like, "Are you teacher? Are we gonna talk about sex today?" He goes, "If I talk about sex, I have to sign it for homework."
Is it true intelligent people make better lovers?
Yeah, he said so many things that I think we would get in trouble with as a teacher today. But I'm glad that he did it.
Yeah.
But in doing so, he connects to the students. If you break those lines of what a stiff that stiff role is supposed to be, then you're going to connect with the students more. And he did that, just as Chad's teacher, Mrs. Clark, did, because she did walk that line.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she got in trouble a little bit here, there, and that's good. That's good teaching. In my opinion.
Was a great teacher.
Great teacher. It comes that time. Dustin, on a 5-star scale, half-star intervals, what do you give 1988 Stand and Deliver?
I'm going to start with the rating. 3.5. I like this movie. Pacing's too fast. It does happen over a period of 2 years. Don't love the ending. Don't love the conflict toward the end. So many delightful parts of this movie, things that made me laugh out loud, things that I love, whether it's my favorite quote, whether it's something... at the end in English, sometimes there's things that are great that I will think about. The FU on the knuckles, the great scenes that I will come back to. But overall, I think the movie fails in enough ways, including the final song as he's walking down the hallway It's like, hey, can you make the end of Breakfast Club but make it badly? Sure, stand and deliver. There you go.
Yeah.
So it's a 3.5. It would be higher, but there were too many things that stood out as missing the mark.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Chad, what are you gonna go with?
I'm going with a 4. I thought this was incredibly enjoyable first watch, and it will definitely be one that I rewatch.
Yeah, I'm with you. The parts that I like make me like it enough. I've harped on certain problems, and those problems are certainly there. And it probably sounded like, and what I said throughout this probably puts me more with where Dustin is at 3.5. But it's just so darn enjoyable, and I like a feel-good movie. And the fact that it's a real story that's worth telling that I would never know about, some of that elevates it up, as well as the commitment that Edward James Olmos does. So that's where I'm going to go with 4 as well. So problems, room for improvement. Dustin, it sounds like you'd be willing to remake this today.
Yes, you're not the first person to tell me to act. Thank you to all the other people who've told me. But yes, yeah, that's a good idea. And hey, get on Patreon, guys. We can fund this Retro Movie Fun Table.
I'll buy the story for $1. Well, inflation. I'll buy it for $3.
I could be Andy Garcia's role. I have a very punchable face.
I think I would remake it, not because this movie's not good, but just because the story is good enough that I think it needs a refresher and shouldn't be forgotten. That's kind of where I come across it. And furthermore, it'll just turn more people to go back and look at the original again. So I say go ahead and remake this one.
Steven
It
Spielberg.
really is kind of a bummer to me to give it the score I did, because I would have. The story's great, and it got me to choose this movie, but there was too much for me to give it a 4 or higher.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, Chad, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
Love to.
It's time for some science fiction.
Excellent.
And option 1, Sunshine from 2007. A special team of international astronauts are sent on a dangerous mission to reignite a dying sun with a nuclear fission bomb in 2057. Option 2, Pandorum from 2009. 2 crew members of a spaceship wake up from hypersleep to discover all of their colleagues are missing. Despite this, it appears as that they are not alone. And option 3, Moon, 2009. An astronaut, Sam Bell, is a quintessentially personal encounter towards the end of his 3-year stint on the moon, where he is working alongside his computer Gertie, and they are sent back to Earth, partials of a resource that has helped diminish our planet's power problems. So a little bit of Sunshine, a little bit of Moon, a little bit of Pandorum.
I have seen none of these movies, so I think I'm going to go with Sunshine.
All right. Keep on the sunny side, he says.
Yes.
Yeah. And Justin, thank you. Chad, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. Happy to be back in person.
Yeah.
I'm glad we picked a movie for all 3 that it's brand new to us. That's rare. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I want to do more of that. So this has been fun. And thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And we're on Instagram now. So producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. We invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. Any contributions you make will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Chad?
Sometimes it takes a lot of wrong answers to get a right.